Peter, why did you take me to a graveyard?
You ever think about all the ways of dying? You know, violently?
No, why did you take me to a graveyard?
Because today on Dissecting Fiction, we're talking all things Halloween.
I guess that makes sense.
It's Dissecting Fiction with Vinny Murphy and Peter Patrizzo. Today on Dissecting Fiction,
all things Halloween.
So what's better for Halloween than a good horror anthology? A little terror, a little comedy. I don't think anything fits the season better.
I love anthology, especially Trick or Treat. That's the seasonal movie for me this time of year.
Yeah, I think as far as... we can still call it contemporary, right? It's not too long. It was released in 2009. I think that's the best. Perhaps the best Halloween movie in the last 20 years or so.
I would have to agree.
I can't really think anything better. And there have been some anthologies that have followed it.
31 Days of Halloween that came out last year. That one, did you see that one?
I've not seen that one.
It's worth a watch. I mean, it's not as good as Trick or Treat, but it's definitely worth a watch.
I just watched Holidays, which you could kind of count in
I saw that too.
different
I saw Holidays as well.
It was
Kevin
okay.
Smith wrote and directed the Halloween segment in that one.
There you go. There's some incentive.
Yeah,
you got ABCs of Death.
You know, I really enjoyed the first one. The second one, not so much. I still haven't watched ABCs of Death 2.5 or something?
I don't even know that was out.
Yeah, it was like all the extra stuff they didn't put in the sequel, the second one, that they put into one movie now. So
the good thing about ABCs of Death, though, is the segments are so short that if you don't like it, it's going to be done pretty soon anyway. I'm trying to think. The VHS was pretty popular.
You know, but see, the thing with VHS is, like, I enjoyed the first movie. The best segment in the second one was the segment with the cult. The cult. Yeah, that was the best. That was the best part of that one. But see, the thing with those movies is, it's called VHS. Who's putting a Skype chat on a VHS tape?
Right.
What kind of world do we live in where people are putting recording their Skype chats on a VHS tape?
Yeah, VHS, even when it's good, kind of the general story tying it all together never quite works in any of them. It's always a little loose, which it can be, but I don't know. It just doesn't have the feel of some of the older ones. Like we were saying, Trick or Treat, probably the best of the modern era.
Oh, absolutely. And VHS Viral was just awful. Just awful. But yeah, no, definitely Trick or Treat's up there. But, you know, now the resurgence, you know, they just put Tales of the Dark Side back on DVD.
Also back on DVD. Friday the 13th, the series, also back on DVD.
That's been out for a while, though, I thought.
They've both been out. I believe the versions that were out before have been out of print for a while, and they just put them together in nice, condensed packages at good prices in most places right now. So it's a good time to check them out if you're looking to pick those up.
Yeah, I saw the Tales from the Dark Side set for like $34.99. So
I've seen it as low as $30.
Okay.
But even going back further than that, I guess sort of out of all the anthology movies, and there's certainly ones in the 60s, 70s, there's even 50s, 40s if I'm correct, probably the one that gets referred to the most is Creepshow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Creepshow, created and conceptualized by Stephen King and George Romero, really wanted to be Tales from the Crypt. I've heard stories that they were trying to get the license. Well, it didn't work.
Well, it was clearly influenced by EC Comics. I mean, clearly.
And there's stories out there about the production where Romero and King, if I'm correct, had been working on trying to get a film version of The Stand out. Right. And began to talk, and apparently Stephen King just constantly talked about EC Comics stuff. And so when The Stand kind of fell through, he switched gears, and Romero was like, well, why don't we do a movie kind of based off of those comic books? And from what I understand, that's pretty much where Creepshow came from. Yeah.
That was the original concept. But also, speaking of which, they are bringing Tales from the Crypt back.
That's true.
I'm sure you read.
I believe for TNT.
Yes.
They seem to be resurrecting some sort of their Monster Vision lineup that they had earlier on.
They got to bring back Joe Bob Briggs.
See if Joe Bob comes back. I would hope so. Maybe Joe Bob can come here someday.
That would be
Talk
great.
to us. That'd be
Hopefully. Joe Bob, if you're watching, Dissecting Fiction wants you. But yeah, no, I'm really. My biggest problem with that, not problem, but concern rather, is I'm sure you read that M. Night Shyamalan is heavily behind it. He's like helping produce it and all that. Not that I have, like M. Night Shyamalan. I think he really fell off after Unbreakable.
I'm not so much worried about Shyamalan.
Yeah, because he's producing it. But my other concern with it is the rights issue, because they're not allowed to use the HBO Crypt Keeper for the show.
That's true. I don't think that's too much of a hindrance, though. There have been Tales from the Crypt projects well before that didn't use that version of the Crypt Keeper.
That is true.
That happened to be an incredibly well organized production, partially because getting the rights together to do that show was difficult.
Right.
And so you had to have, a lot of organization, and they owned a lot of what they made.
Yeah.
I don't see the issue. I'll tell you what concerns me most about the new Tales from the Crypt is that they're saying it's going to be an hour show. And those type of stories are hard to do in an hour just to keep interest up. Tales from the Crypt, as much fun as it is, thrives off the fact that it hits you hard and then gets out of there.
But weren't there some Tales from the Crypt specials? I mean, not the movies, but weren't there some other specials that were also an hour long?
I don't believe so.
No? Oh.
I have to check on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but yeah, no, I do agree with you, dude. I do see your point. I mean, that all the episodes are about 25 minutes to an hour, half hour long each. But I don't know. We'll see. Because I don't think it's even coming out until next year. So.
Well, speaking about sort of Tales from the Crypt's general influence on all this, and Creepshow, which is totally influenced by Tales from the Crypt, Creepshow sort of birthed a bunch of its own anthologies. Tales from the Dark Side was supposed to be a Creepshow TV show.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Creepshow 2 obviously came out and to some success.
Right,
Horror
right.
movies' success tends to be measured a little different.
Creepshow 3.
Never saw it, but didn't have anything to do with the original production either.
Right.
And you have Tom Savini.
It was okay.
Said numerous times that if you want Creepshow 3, it's Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
Right.
Which makes a lot of sense because it takes what Tales from the Dark Side was doing and goes back to that more violent sort of style. And you have Cat's Eye thrown in there. Stephen King wrote all those.
Right.
There's all this sort of incestuous connection between all these productions. There's even tentacles that reach into the Tales from the Crypt stuff.
Yeah.
Going back towards it. It's really that balance of comedy and horror that was done so well for a decade or so, and then so you give Tales from the Crypt credit into breaking into the 90s, but it kind of was lost, and maybe this stuff will start to bring it back.
I feel like it is. I mean, going back to, I feel like Ash vs. Evil Dead is having a big hand in that as well. Because like it or not, it is kind of bringing back that horror comedy kind of style.
Well, that sort of grueling
gore,
I'll agree with. Like I said, not a huge fan of the comedy in it. So I think my impression of it's going to be a little different just naturally.
Right.
But I certainly think the door has kind of opened. Things like Tusk are a good example. Once again, I think it's a little long, but it works. Like, it's...
Yeah. I mean, I heavily enjoyed Tusk. I'll admit it. I really loved Tusk. I'm not gonna lie, but again, I was familiar with. I'm sure you were too. The history behind it, coming from the podcast and everything.
If you don't know, it was basically a joke on Kevin Smith's podcast. And what they found did they find the ad or did they make up the story?
Oh no, yeah, they found the ad on it was on Gumtree.com. It was a post about this guy who was looking for a roommate. He was offering a free room to them. The only stipulation was, I think it was 2 hours a day. They would have to wear a walrus costume and act like a walrus. So then they just started playing around with that concept, and he came up with the movie Tusk. And they did not take it seriously at all. That's another reason why I love that movie, because yeah, it's ridiculous, but it's supposed to be ridiculous.
Right.
You know, and even Yoga Hosers I enjoyed as well. I mean, it's not the strongest Kevin Smith movie, far from it, but I gotta say I did enjoy it because you watch that movie and you could tell everyone's having fun making that movie.
Yeah, I haven't been able to see that yet. That was only on limited release so far.
Right.
Comes out on video. I'm sure I'll check it out. I haven't gotten to that.
Commercial time.
One of my favorite Halloween traditions is going to haunted houses. As an adult, I now work in one, here in Stony Point, New York, 30 Knapp Road. So if you're looking for a scare in the month of October, come down to 30 Knapp Road every Saturday night. It's free, and you can leave a donation.
What the fuck?
The Witch. It came out earlier this year. It was really well done. See, when I first saw the trailer for it, I wasn't that impressed. I was kind of like, eh. And then I finally watched it, and yeah.
I really enjoyed The Witch. Excited from the point I saw the trailer, actually.
Really?
It seemed like a very moody film from the beginning, and I kind of like... You almost get that dirty, sort of natural look.
Okay.
The way they shot it. I really enjoyed that. So I was excited from the beginning. Once I saw it, I was just impressed by the amount of research they did and how genuine the type of story for the period they were telling. It was a story that fit the era that they were creating.
Absolutely. I mean, no, they captured it perfectly. That, like I said, once I actually watched the movie, I was really taken back by it. It was really well done.
I think it's also nice to see A24 just kind of solid release schedule every year. Everything they're putting out is at least of a good quality, whether you like it or not. It's hard to go against them right now.
And they're getting these movies that normally wouldn't see a wide theatrical release into theaters, which I think is great.
I mean, they got Ex Machina, awards looks.
Yeah, absolutely. And exactly. That was
for a movie
great.
like that's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So what else are you watching?
Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yeah. Season 2, Episode 1. Great stuff. Like I said before, I know some people have mixed feelings on the show, like you.
I have mixed feelings. We'll get into that. I haven't watched season 2 yet, but we'll talk.
All right, but I feel like it really captures the essence of Army of Darkness with the grotesque, over-the-top gore of the first 2 Evil Dead films.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with you about the gore. I think the weakness of the show is being a show. I feel that they stretch Ash over hours and hours, and having to produce so much more sort of dialogue for him takes away from the story. Like Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, they're pretty fast and hard. They're not long movies.
Yeah, they're about 80 minutes long each.
They're funny, and I feel that putting Ash in an environment where you have to do that for how long are the seasons?
About 5-6 hours. With 10 episodes each, about half hour each.
I think stretching what would probably be about a movie's plot into 6 hours really, really hurts.
Right.
And there are scenes that are great. In the first season, I really enjoyed the first time you see any Deadites when the police are going into the house. There's a scene later in the season. Forgive me for not remembering exactly the context, where it's almost like a paramilitary group.
Oh, you're talking about the episode with the militia group. Yeah.
That was all looked really pretty. I thought it was really well done, but it was so dragged down by so much wacky that I couldn't commit to it. I felt like I wasn't watching anything.
You feel that it's unbalanced?
Yeah, it lacks balance because they have so much time. Like, they don't have to restrict themselves, and they know it.
Right.
And a lot of times when the pressure isn't on is when you kind of lose focus. You stop trying to keep everything tight and impressive, and you go with what people say they like, and it can mess you up.
Well, how about Westworld?
Oh, Westworld I thought was phenomenal.
Fantastic. And very horrific. Like, they're really pushing the darkness of that, how dark this kind of world could get.
Yeah, I think they captured Crichton at his best. Crichton's not always the most solid writer. If you read a lot of his novels, he slips up sometimes. He gets a little boring. When he's at his best, he's writing about science in a terrifying way, and I think though this was, a new vision of Westworld, they very much got what makes Crichton's stories work.
Okay, right. I'm not too familiar with his written work, so you gotta forgive me. But if the show is any indication, I definitely want to check out his stuff. His actual written work.
It seemed from the previews they've shown afterwards that it is going in the right direction.
Because the original 70s film, I mean, it was dark, but it did not get as dark as the show did.
No, it went more a science fiction route, more playing with the ideas of androids, that whole idea. Whereas his books do get to that horror thing. Like Jurassic Park, the novel, is a horror story.
Right.
It's not an adventure. It's these scientists screwed everything up, and now people have to deal with it, and the end isn't really all that hopeful in the book. Like Jurassic Park the movie is a totally different world.
Right.
And I feel like this is almost the evolution of learning how to tell those stories, where maybe the next Jurassic World movie will go to something closer to that, because now they see Westworld and go like, okay, you can do the darker Crichton type story. You can do that. This might be a horror story, we're not sure.
Another thing I would love to see get a darker, grittier reboot would be The Mask. Like, have it be more based on the original comics.
That's an interesting idea. For those who don't know, the Mask was a comic. Started out, and it's the comic itself is extremely violent. It's kind of just imagine what happens in the movie, but
people are actually like getting their heads blown off and guts being shred asunder and everything.
The fact of it being Loki's mask is much more of a central focus than it is in the film.
Yeah, exactly. And Stanley Ipkiss is only the main character in the comic book for the first 20 issues?
Not long.
Yeah, it's not very long. He dies off very quickly. Spoilers.
It was like 20 years ago. You can't get mad.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. But so I would love to see a darker, grittier reboot of that.
Yeah, I'm always afraid of reboots at this point, but certainly if it warranted enough of a style change, which is one of my huge problems with Jurassic World. Jurassic World was, hey, these are the things that people said they liked in Jurassic Park. Let's do that and not do it too well.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that movie, I do not get, people... I mean, people love it, that's fine. And the ending saved that movie for me because of the sheer fan service with the T-Rex at the end.
I tend to go, I'd rather someone go daring and screw it up than go fan service and make it...
Yeah, I agree.
Sort of, there's nothing you can't complain about dinosaurs fighting each other.
Well, when I say fan service, I don't mean that made me automatically love the movie, but it made me feel like I didn't waste $7 when I watched it in the theater.
Yeah, it's... it did really well, and you can't say anything against formula sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes that's the way to go, and you're making a blockbuster. They intended to make a blockbuster, and there's a lot of people who worked really, really hard to do that, and they did it. I just thought it was really unfulfilling, even compared to Lost World and 3. I thought Lost World and 3 were more interesting sequels than Jurassic World was. I mean,
and one of my other biggest problems with Jurassic World is that they kept saying that they were going to bring back the animatronics and more mixed with the CGI, but the whole thing just looked like a big CGI mess to me.
Yeah, the only
animatronic I recognized was that Brontosaurus head, which
did not look very good.
Yeah, it was very poorly.
They are making the same claim again, though. That actually, just today, that claim came out that they're going to go more animatronic again for Jurassic World 2.
Right.
Also a darker story, a smaller story. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, hopefully it works out.
So we were talking about American Horror Story.
Yes, we were.
A couple days ago. Yes. What are your thoughts on this season? I know you watched the opening.
Yeah, I only watched the first episode so far. What are they on, the third episode now?
I believe, as of this taping, third. Yes.
The third? Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I like the concept. I like that it's based around the Roanoke colony. I like that concept. The writers of that show seem to always drop the ball for some reason. Except for the first season.
I'll agree with you to a certain extent. I think the endings have been weak. One might even argue progressively weaker as the show's gone on. But it's never not been a fun ride. I think the 5th season was the roughest, even getting through that
I never watched
sort
the
of
5th
ride.
season. I boycotted it after season 3.
I've been watching it fairly consistently. 5 was rougher than 4 even. But I kind of like the new concept of creating like almost a fake paranormal witness.
Okay, right. You're saying with the whole like mockumentary style.
Right, they're
interviews.
doing like a mockumentary where they have actors playing the characters, and then actors playing the characters in reenactments of what the characters said happened. It creates a little tension because you know some of the characters who survive already because they're telling their own story. And the question is, where do you go with that? Do you then tell another story where the characters come back into the real world and you're just dealing with the actual people, not the actors reenacting?
Right.
I think it could be really cool because who knows where they're going. And like at bare minimum with that show, it's really hard to tell where they're going first couple of episodes.
I mean, if the first episode is any indication, hopefully they learned their lessons from the last couple of seasons and they're not going to just go off on a bunch of tangents this time. Like, this 3rd season had so many subplots, and, like, most of them never even went anywhere.
That's true.
Yeah.
On location.
Peter here of Dissecting Fiction with Chris, who runs a haunted house here at Stony Point, New York, 30 Knapp Road. Chris, why do you do this?
To scare kids.
What would you say is the hardest part of setting up every year?
To be honest, it's waiting for the inspiration to hit. A lot of it is very haptic, and it takes the beginning of October and the seasonal change for the inspiration to really hit.
When do you start setting up for everything?
I try to start in August.
Okay.
I just get a layout going in August, and then I wait till September, October, till the stores start opening and buying stuff and getting ideas from everyone around.
You put a lot of your own resources into it?
I do. I put all my own funds into it, and all my own friends volunteer.
What would you say to anyone who wants to come here?
You should definitely come check it out. We eliminate all the bad things about haunted houses that you pay for. There's no cost, and there's minimal wait times. It's also pretty local for anyone who lives in Rockland County.
Come here to 30 Knapp Road at Stony Point, New York, and come check this out. Again, it's free. All they ask for is a donation.
You can't talk about the history of Halloween without mentioning
Or the scared
the Druids. Yeah, the Druids. The Druids started the festival of Samhain, which literally means the end of summer. And it was a day that they believed would make the spirit world come closer to that of the physical world. It wasn't a happy holiday, but it turned into something else.
Yes, it certainly did. Now we wear stupid costumes, girls wear less clothes, and we get free candy and get drunk.
I don't get drunk.
Oh, well, you get free candy, though, right?
It's true, I do get free
Okay. All right.
But where did all of these traditions come from? What about dressing up?
Well, dressing up, I'm not sure, where did that stem from?
Dressing up, what they think it is it came originally from people trying to blend in with these spirits, whether they be demons, whatever they thought at the time, who were supposedly walking around. It was a way that they wouldn't get noticed on a night where they were in grave danger, really.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
The candy started out as sacrifices to these spirits.
They were offerings, weren't they? Originally?
Offerings.
Like offerings.
Occasionally human sacrifices, from what we understand.
Occasionally.
Occasionally. You don't always need a human sacrifice to
But it
stave off
helps.
demons. It does help.
It helps.
Later on, when the Romans came through and invaded basically Great Britain,
Right.
they kind of adapted it into their own festivals. One was a festival for the dead, which took place at pretty much the same time. And there was also a festival for Pomona, who was the goddess of basically fruit-bearing trees, things like that. That's supposedly where sort of apples and gourds and things get into the celebrations. And jack-o'-lanterns were just another form of warding off the spirits.
Right.
Halloween doesn't really come in to the form that we know it now until 20th century America, really.
Yeah. I mean, the Halloween we know now really is because of America, the Americanization of the holiday.
Basically because throughout the 1800s, a lot of immigrants came in, mostly Catholic, whom the Roman stuff had carried over into Catholic tradition. All Saints' Day was actually moved to go in line with Halloween. And what ends up happening is you end up with this night where sometimes there's parties, sometimes there's kids just creating mischief, sometimes there's kids dressing up. It's all very disorganized. In the early 30s, different cities started suggesting that people organize a little more, and that's really where sort of the traditional trick-or-treating and Halloween activities came to be.
Right.
And just other combinations from other harvest festivals, too. It's just simple Earth spinning around at the same time. Everyone's harvesting, and you get a lot of that mixed in there.
I think it's safe to say that Halloween really is a holiday wholly created by everyone. Everyone kind of takes their own theme from all different cultures, and we basically do our own thing with it.
We'll get some arguments on Thanksgiving here, but I think there's a good argument that Halloween is an extremely representative holiday of America. All these ideas kind of coming together to create something new,
right?
But still working with the traditions from 2,000 years ago.
Well, that about says it all, right, Pete? Pete, I'm getting out of here.
Dissecting Fiction is sponsored in part by
30naproad.com. The X-Y Group.
3, 2, 1.
So as we've shown today, Halloween and fiction go hand in hand. We really hope you've enjoyed our discussions today. Once again, I'm Vinny Murphy. You can find me on Twitter at TheVinnyM.
And I'm Peter Patrizzo. You can check out my Facebook page,
That's
Future
all the
Perception.
time we have for today.